Question 1. What challenges have you encountered in tutoring sessions when working with neurodiverse or disabled students?
Some challenges that I encountered when working with neurodivergent or disabled students have been still encouraging them to write down their ideas and to use that for their projects, but realizing that some of their ideas might not be related to what they were asked to write about or what they were asked to complete for the project. There have been times when students have been very married or perhaps hyperfixated on what they wanted to write, and so it's been challenging to try and show them that they might have to include other details or even pivot from their original ideas. It's hard to sometimes show them that they can work off of other ideas or expand their points and still be true to themselves because they might really want to talk about their original ideas. Another challenge that I faced is that sometimes some of the academic skills that might be necessary for them to be successful at the college level still have to be improved on. Certain skills like being able to answer WH questions or being able to respond to a question with relevant information might be challenging to do. But a lot of these elements I think are noticeable in not just neurodivergent students, but really with any student of all abilities. What maybe is more noticeable in these situations is that the students perhaps show heightened experiences of that. On a related note, there are students where, or there are times when a student might show heightened irritability or sensitivity or impatience with certain procedures we have at the center. So in those instances, I have noticed that with students who are not neurodivergent, but again, it's just that they might be more heightened in instances when I'm working with students who are neurodivergent.
Question 2. What practices were you taught or techniques you applied that can be useful to other tutors?
So one technique that was taught to me to be helpful for these students was that if I'm noticing that I'm asking a lot of questions and the student isn't really understanding what my question is, or if the student is answering in such a way that it's focusing more on what they want to talk about, then I might have to list out a series of answers or possible answers to the question and ask the student to consider which one might be the most relevant and to talk about the pros and cons of each of those answers or the degree of relevance for each of those answers. So in that way, I'm still able to keep it student-centered, but to try and offer them a step in the process of this is maybe what the professor is looking for, or this is maybe something that would be helpful to answer the question if the student isn't really showing that they either understand or that they might need to pivot their thinking to be in a more relevant area for that question. Something else that was helpful has just been de-escalating situations. If I'm noticing a student is uncomfortable or irritable or might be upset about the content of the assignment, or maybe even just how the discussion in the tutoring session is going. And what usually that will look like is just taking a moment. At times I've had to remind them maybe to breathe, or if they want to go get some water or take a walk. Other things I've done have just been going back to the basics and having them write down, well, what do you think is the answer to this question? Or what do you think your professor wants you to be doing for this assignment? Whether or not it's actually what the assignment was calling for, because ultimately it's about making sure that their ideas are relevant. And so if I'm noticing that they might be getting overwhelmed, I always go back to what they know, what they understand, and have that be the priority for the session.
Question 3. If you can implement one major improvement to make your tutoring session more inclusive, what would it be?
I think something that would be helpful would be knowing what kinds of assistive technology to use with the students. Some students might be aware that they have a disability or that they're neurodivergent, and they might know what assistive technology to use. Some of them use it themselves of their own accord because that's a habit that they've already developed. Other students might not be aware of what those technologies are, and it may be helpful for me as a tutor to be able to suggest different assistive technologies that they might want to use. And I think those technologies can be useful not just for neurodivergent students, but really for all students. So it would be more of a matter of if I notice that a student could benefit for whatever reason from using those technologies, I would like to know what they are so that I can make sure that they're aware of them and perhaps even walk through with them how they could use them.